Back to your early experience, when you were first then involved in serious study of dance, I suppose that was after you were out of the service. Who were your first teachers and where did this occur?
Well, I went to San Francisco, as I said, and I had this letter of introduction from the lady I met in the Army. And I arrived on a Friday afternoon. I called her teacher, and she asked me, well, if you're interested, come on over to take class tonight. So I took class with her. And by the following Saturday, she had already invited me to be part of her exhibition group. And it was through this exhibition group that I got a chance to be on a program with Ruth St. Dennis, who is the legend of legends in the dance world. And to have that happen very early in my career, it was very exciting.
And did you ever meet Ted Shawn?
No, I didn't. And I must say I never met Ruth St. Dennis because
I see. Oh, all right.
She was a star and I wasn't. And the two don't go together. But from that, the GI Bill was available and I had to apply for it, and I got the GI Bill to study at the San Francisco Ballet School. And when you talk about early teachers, my first teacher was Vera Gold, a woman who I will never forget. And I hope if she hears this, that she will know that I loved her dearly, but she really wasn't the greatest teacher in the world. But she did see something in me and encouraged me to
go on.
So I owe her that.
I think that this, as I said, my discipline of the heart, that this happens a lot to people that are, perhaps many of us have the first memory of our early teachers as not necessarily being the most wonderful people in our career, but nevertheless they saw enough in us to push us forward, and so we do love them and remember them and take that very seriously.
Yes, she saw that I was progressing faster than the rest of the people in her class, and she went to the next level, to the teacher of the next level. And they had quite an argument because the other teacher didn't want me. She didn't think I was ready. She didn't think I had studied long enough. But then with Vera's this constant needling her, she agreed that if I could come into her class as long as I stayed in Vera Gold's class. And this was Madeline Gevertz, who later became Madeline Gavers, and one of the major teachers of Juilliard, and was also the Metropolitan Opera. But at that time, she was teaching in San Francisco. From that class, was invited by Harold Christensen, who was director of the school, to join the professional class. And I still haven't been dancing very long. This is covering just a matter of months, not years. And then they needed men, because there were very few men in the ballet world. And I did my ballet debut with the San Francisco Ballet in Capelia in 1948. And some of the stars of that company are bound to become very big, very big.
I wanted to ask you, who were some of the stars that you remember from the early part of your career? Just drop a name or 10.
Drop a name or 10. Well, Jocelyn Vollmer was one of our ballerinas, and she went on to dance. She is now back in San Francisco as one of the major teachers. And Lou Christensen, who came and eventually took over the company, but he was just one of the dancers when I was there. Peter Nelson, who is a teacher here in New York City, was there. Probably the one who became the most successful was a guy who made his debut also in the same ballet I did. His name at that time was Jimmy Hicks, but he later became Scott Douglas of American Ballet Theater and was principal of American Ballet Theater for 15 or 20 years. And brilliant dancer.
And did you have, these people had an inspirational influence on you, and did you actually work with them at the same time?
Oh, yes. People like Scott and I, we were very, very good friends. Again, because we simply started at the same time. And he had had previous dance training. There's where the difference comes in. He had, by the time he had gone into the service, he had already been a performer, not necessarily a professional performer, but a performer. Mm-hmm. And he, when I came to New York, after a while, you realize if you stayed in San Francisco in the 40s, they only danced about 6 months a year, and you had to find other jobs. Well, I had gone into folk dancing, so I could teach folk dancing to supplement my income. But I really wanted more out of it, so I decided to come to New York. And when I came to New York from the company, I was here before Scott. Let me just see if I can name Scott Douglas, or Jimmy Hicks, came to New York, joined Ballet Theater. Vernon Windorf came to New York from the San Francisco company, joined Ballet Theater. Leo Duggan came from San Francisco and joined Ballet Theater. Roland Vasquez joined the New York City Ballet. And it could be very discouraging that all these dear friends of yours who came here after you did got into some of the major companies. There was only one difference. I was about 6 to 7 inches taller than all the rest of them. And when I would go to an audition, they would, I would be eliminated almost immediately, because in today's market I would be, really in demand. But at that time, if you were over 6 feet, you did not get a chance to dance.
Because the current stature of so many dancers have increased high.
Yeah, yes. They're high. People like Cynthia Gregory, for instance, on point, is almost 6 foot tall.
I see.
And to have somebody dance with her, she has had a terrible time finding a partner. She just can't dance with just everybody. And as I say, I would have been, I just came along at the wrong time. So once I realized that it was not my ability or my lack of ability that kept me from getting into these companies, but the fact that I was too tall didn't stop me from continuing my career, although I talked to one of them one day, and he said, I really envy you. And I said, how could you envy me? You did what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, but look, you're still in the business. I'm not. I'm working as a waiter. Because after a certain age, you just don't work. And I've been fortunate enough to continue in the business all these years.
Let's think when you said in 1948 you were in Capelli in San Francisco Ballet, and then you came to New York in what year?
49.
In 49, just right thereafter.
Well, it sounds like that, but it was literally a little over a year because of when you made your debut. After I came to New York, yes, I immediately got with the American Theater Wing, which sponsored the theater program. You had to be a professional to join the theater wing, so fortunately having been with the company in San Francisco allowed me to do that. And they also, one of the things that I had that today's dancers don't have, and that was the fact that the government paid for everything. And not only paid for all of my classes.
So this was a GI Bill service experience.
The American Theater was their outlet. And also when I was in San Francisco, they paid for all my expenses. But it's not only that I got paid for, that the classes paid for, I got paid. They would send me $52 a month. And in those days, $52 a month would pay your rent if nothing else. And so getting with the GI Bill and working with the best teachers of the time, I mean the best teachers. We don't have any equivalent to that now. One of the things, because ballet was still basically new in this country. If this was 49, ballet had only started coming into this country on a regular basis in 33.
Oh, really?
So we're now talking about a rather brief time in the span of the entire history of dance. So the greatest teachers now, I like to name them because they were so fantastic. Anthony Tudor was a very important teacher of mine, Margaret Krask. Now these people who also taught all the main stars, and Edward Caton, Madame de Geneva, Bukov, Lisan Kei, Yaichi Nomura. I studied Hindu with Hadassah. I studied Spanish with Guillermo del Oro and also Aida Alvarez. And I studied primitive dance with Catherine Dunham. I was in that school for about 3 years. And at that time, dance was basically segregated when it came to performing, not in the classroom. I must say, one of the nicest things about the dance world is that no one cared what color you were. If you could work and you could do stuff. Unfortunately, when you went to get a job, that was a different story, but as far as classroom work goes. So when I was with Catherine, there was only about 5 white people taking class on a regular basis. And those friends that I made during that time are still my friends. And we still get together and laugh and cry about the things. But having the background that I had, there's not many people who can say, I got good enough in Hindu dancing to be a performer of Hindu dancing, or Spanish, or primitive, and all of the other things. Most people nowadays can only afford to major in one of the art forms, one of the dance art forms, like ballet, or modern, or tap, or jazz. Having my background. Now, I'm not the only one who had this. I'm sure people like Peter Gennaro and other people of my age group had the same opportunities. And especially the ones who had been in the service and had the GI Bill paying for it. That makes a lot of difference. And that's why I would love to think that we had our government subsidy continues, because without it, I could not have become a dancer. And without becoming a dancer, I have influenced thousands. I would, hundreds of thousands of people I have influenced in my dance teaching career.